Well, greetings, people of the internet. Unkyjoe here, Unkyjoe's Playhouse. Today, we're building a brand new server in a 4U rack mount case from Rack Choice. I'm super excited to share this project with you. We got a powerful Supermicro H11 SSL-I mainboard, some very fast ECC registered DDR4 RAM, and an AMD Epyc 7551P CPU waiting to be put together. And then, what kind of nefarious use are we going to have for this server? Let's find out. So I like to lay out the components on my test bench, and you can see all the devices I'm thinking about putting into this thing. I had a 10 gig networking card. I believe this is a Tesla P40 or M40 video card. And I had everything lined up, tested, made sure the board would boot and the RAM slots were seen and all that. And so now the next thing we're going to do is disassemble this and place all the components into the case, the 4U case that's beneath it. And I got this 4U case because it had all the bells and whistles. It had all the expansion I needed. But you see as I get into this here, that I'm having to remove certain components of the case, namely that was a 3.5 inch drive bay, and take it out because it's not going to leave enough length for my video cards. And then I had some Noctua fans that were donated by MediCurb, and I took them out because I'm going to be replacing the fans internally here to the Noctua fans. Then I took the center brace out just to make room so I could get the motherboard installed into this case. And I really like this case, and I think I paid 140 or 150 bucks for it. And again, this is not a machine. This is a machine that's kind of I had an initial idea of how I wanted to do everything. Here I am installing the power supply. It's a whatchamacallit, power supply, component power supply, so you can plug in the cables separately. It just makes it easier to maintain. But the original intent of this was I was going to mount a 3x5 adapter kit that would allow me to install 4 3.5 inch hard drives in a 3 slot, 5.25 inch slot. But with the expansion cards I was going to use in here, namely the video cards, it wouldn't allow me enough room to then put a drive bay in on this 5.25 section you see there. So we kind of fought back and forth, Sakura and I did, with whether or not I should include that in this build. And then I decided this build is all about compute power, not about storage power. So that's why I opted to not be too concerned about internal storage on here. And ultimately, I'm going to use an internal NVMe drive to boot. And then the plan is, moving forward, I will have an add-on card that allows me to put 4 NVMe cards into a single PCI expansion slot. And then by using a method called bifurcation, I specifically got this board for that reason, I'll be able to split those into 4 separate SSD drives, and then we'll have really fast NVMe storage available on board. Now the other thing I'm doing here is measuring for the fans, and even though I measured for the fans, I thought they were 40s. Now Sakura, we had a bet going on. Sakura thought they were 80s. I thought they were 40s. Turns out we were both wrong. They're 60 mil fans. So I ordered a couple of 40 mils and then a couple of 80s, and let's just say I have lots of spare fans. So here I am putting that power supply in, and this is the EVGA GT 1000 Gold. I figured 1,000 watts will be more than powerful enough. Now the plan is I'm going to stick the RTX 3060 video card in here, 12 gig video card, and also an M40, a Tesla M40 12 gig card in here, and one I'll use for large language models, and the other one I'll use for something like Stable Diffusion. and it just gives me a lot of expandability. I find that the RTX is better suited for large language models than an M40 or a Tesla P40R for large language models, if that makes any sense at all. So I'm just hooking everything up in here, all the components, testing, making sure everything's going to fit, all the cables work, all the switches work. And again, the idea behind this server we'll talk about here once we get done with the build video. So basically I'm plugging everything in, making sure everything's working, trying to get the cables routed. Once I gave up the idea of trying to put internal hard drives in this machine, things went a lot smoother than they had. There's a bunch of footage you didn't see, in fact, on that very subject. Here I was taking the filter out of the front of that door. Those doors are not easily removed, but they were impeding the airflow coming through on that front fan. The idea is I want to pull air in through the front and push it out the back. That's the way all the fans are situated, including the one on the AMD CPU. Here I am just trying to route my wires and try to get some idea of how I want to plug everything in here. And then one thing I did notice is that I was having lots of trouble getting an SSD drive to work in this server, and it wasn't any fault of the Supermicro motherboard. It was actually some of the cables that were sent with the power supply. Some of the SATA cables, power cables, were not working properly, and so you can see me unplugging and plugging in the drive. I couldn't get it to be recognized. I was moving around ports and everything else, and it turned out I just had some faulty SATA power connectors on the that came with the new power supply. It was really unfortunate, and I need to contact EVGA about that and find out, if they can replace those cables. But I had an NVMe drive coming to put internally on this thing, so it wasn't that big of a deal, but it took me a while to figure out what was going on so that I could boot an operating system here. And then, we finally got everything installed into the server, into the case, and it was simply a matter of loading software on here so I could start burning the thing in. And then the video card, or the network card, it has a half-height adapter on it, and I was desperately trying to locate a full-height adapter for the card and never did. But that's okay, because I found a solution to the problem, and I'll share that with you here in just a little bit. So one last look before we button her up. So this is the Epyc. I've now got the Noctua fans installed. They're pulling air through there's a Noctua fan up here pushing air through. This fan pulls it through the heatsink and then ejects it out the back, and then there's power supply fans. So I went ahead with the RTX 3060, 12 gig, and a gigabyte 1650, I believe that is. GeForce 1650. So between these two cards, I should be able to do whatever I need to do with this machine. Remember, this machine is going to be my AI learning. It's going to run a bunch of VMs. The other thing I did was I took the 10 gig NIC card out of here because I had Sakura looked for me, I looked for me. I cannot find a damn bracket that will fit this version 1 of this network card, and I'm tired of looking for one. And there's what I have in the short one. Short one fits, big one doesn't. The big one I got from eBay for Sakura did not fit, and the one I ordered from Amazon did not fit, so I give up. Since I'm not putting any storage in this server yet, that might go in there later, but right now it's not going to have any storage, and if it does, it's going to be NVMe storage when that little card comes in from Amazon, and I can add as much high-speed NVMe storage as I want. So it's kind of ridiculous to put slow spinning Rust in here. I already have 3.5-inch drives galore in these bad boys here. So what do I need more storage space for? I don't. So I'm going to put this server to work doing what it does best. I'm foregoing the 10 gig NIC for now. I'll revisit that later. It's going to be right in the rack, so I might end up going with an SFP card and just, make my life easy. But anyway, I'm going to button this back up and then we can get it in the rack. I've got to reconfigure this to use the onboard 1 gig NIC, and then all should be well, so wish me luck. Alright, so after many weeks, it's been a couple of weeks now, of hard work and consternation and this and that and the other, we finally got this Epyc built. And so I want to go over the hardware real quick and the choices I made. So we went with an Epyc A.I GT series. I think it's a 1100 watt power supply, and it's completely modular, if you can see that down there, just to make my life a whole lot easier. And I haven't done any cable management because, again, it's not done. I opted not to put any hard drives in here, as you can tell by the fact that I have left this 3.5-inch drive tray, adapter tray out, because there's a slight little problem when you try to put that in with that with that cooling fan on. So that's out. There won't be any hard drives in here. There will be another item going into this server, and we'll cover that here in a minute. So I went with some Noctua 60mm fans, and Sakura and I thought they were 40s. Sakura thought they were 80s. We were both wrong. They were 60s. So I had to send I kept the 80s. I'll use them somewhere else. And I ordered 2 more 60s, and they came in. This CPU cooler came with the AMD CPU, the Epyc. The motherboard is the Supermicro S11. So I'll flash it up here on the bottom. There is a NVMe drive in here, just a boot drive. It's under this GTX 3060 12 gig card, so not much I can do with it to show you the NVMe disk. In the front, we've got another Noctua fan. Now, this video card is not a Tesla P40. This is a Tesla M40, and the reason it's in here is because I had this in another unit and was never sure. I never have, since I bought this card, never been able to test it, because it's just a comedy of circumstances, a tragedy of circumstances. I was unable to ever thoroughly test this card, so I was never quite sure if it worked or not. Now I'm quite sure it works. I put this card in here, and I've run it up. I've run it at 1080p with Furmark in a Windows virtual machine, passed through the video card, and with the help of this adaptive little eBay printed, this cowl comes with the cowl, and the fan helps force air, push air through that, because this is a passively cooled, it depends on server air, a high volume of air going through a server to cool it. The problem is these cards throttle at about 84, 85 C, and I don't want it to throttle. So with the use of this fan, and then I can go into the Supermicro BIOS or to the Supermicro IPMI, and I can ramp up the fans if I'm going to do some really intense AI like I would do on the 3060. Now, initially I was going to put this card in here simply to test it, but I'm thinking to myself, why not leave it in here? I've already got one virtual machine set up for AI, and we'll cover that either in this video or in another video. Wouldn't it be nice to just leave the M40 in here? It's already got, the big benefit of this card is, even though it doesn't have tensor cores like the GTX or the RTX, it is well suited for certain types of AI. So it's going to sit here most of the time doing nothing. I think it consumes 20 watts at idle. We can look that up on NVIDIA-SMI at the command prompt. It'll tell us how many watts it's using at idle. But why not just leave it in there? And then, in addition to having this VM running some AI, I could have another VM running another instance of either Stable Diffusion or Easy Diffusion or text to speech AI, speech to AI, whatever. Gives me lots of opportunities. And then once that NVMe card comes in, That's where you put 4 NVMe drives on one card and you bifurcate the slot. And I do have one slot left down there. And we can zoom in a little bit. You can just see that 116X slot hiding down there. Sorry about the light. Makes it hard to see. But yeah, so we can do that, and then actually utilize this card that I probably paid a couple of $100 for a few years ago and never got to use. It'd be nice to put it to use. And then I've got plans. I've got a P40 Tesla, but that's spoilers. And again, I'm going to leave this barren of drives because the internal SSD is okay for just local work, and then anything once the NVMe 4 slot comes in, I'll order a couple of more NVMe SSDs, and then I'll be able to store more virtual machines directly on this machine rather than having to save them out to the Synology flash station. Now, I'm debating whether or not I want to put the brace back in, and this thing really doesn't flex at all. There's not enough in it, but I should probably, and it kind of, I'm going to be putting more cards in here, so I think I'm going to do the smart thing. I'm going to leave the brace out for now. I'm just going to put the cover back on so I can slide it back in the rack, and I'm definitely leaving that M40 in there. Like I say, 12 gig of RAM on that thing. It can be put to good use. I could even maybe perhaps even divide the GPUs into virtual GPUs. Who knows? But I'll be able to use that card, whereas for the last 2 years, year and a half, I haven't been able to use it. So, man, this was money well spent on this Epyc. I am glad Sakura finally got me to get the damn thing. I've been wanting to play with something like this for years. And spoilers, I got another server that's come in that we're going to be able to play with as well, and we'll be able to do some more AI on. But this is my Doomsday server, and as this video goes on, you'll learn either in this video what I mean by Doomsday server, or you'll learn it in the next video about this AMD. We're calling this the Super Epyc because it's a super micro motherboard and an Epyc CPU. Not just because it's super epic. It is for me. You know, I've always dreamt of having this kind of hardware, but I've, like you probably, have been, you know, middle class poor my whole life. So it takes a lot of time to get the money together to be able, and I got to wait till the prices come down until it becomes an older generation before I can afford this stuff. Especially something like this video card. I know what the P40 went for new, and there were $5,000 to $6,000. I don't know what this M40 ran, but I can only imagine maybe a couple of grand when it was new. So yeah, to me this is, you know, this is new stuff, and I know it's not well suited for AI, but it will do some really good. It's a lot better than running AI on a CPU than it is on a GPU. It's easier to run it on a GPU than a CPU. So, and then for the really intensive AI stuff, I'll use the RTX 3060. Anyway, I'm babbling on. Well, but I just wanted you to see how the build ended up, and you know, everything is, you know, in there neatly. There's really good airflow in this case. I've got it coming in from the front. This fan forces air through these cooling fins. Then I got the 2 fans on the RTX, and I've got 2 Noctua fans. And look, yes, they are pushing air out. This fan pushes air through the heatsink and out to the Noctua fans. So good airflow. And then I got a whole big old power supply. It looks like a 180 mil power supply fan in there. All right, so the build is done. Well, for now. Anyway, we got the machine built. It's in the rack. What the hell's that do? How did that get there? I don't know. We'll talk about that later. But suffice it to say, it's built. It's in the rack. Proxmox is on it, and let's go take a look at Proxmox. All right, so here we are. Proxmox up and running. Version 8 point something. Where is it? Why can I never find? Oh, it's right up at the top left-hand corner. Proxmox Virtual Environment 8.2.4. So there you go. Got 128 gig of RAM. We've got, how many cores? Do we have 64 threads and 32 cores to play around with? Plenty of processing power. We've got that NVIDIA RTX 3060 12 gig video card in there. We've got the M40 video card in there, the 12 gig card. We don't have 10 gig networking. We'll get to that later, and we really don't need it because this isn't a storage server. I've got 10 gig to my Synology NAS, so we should be fine. I would like some fast local storage, and once we get that card in from the depths of some ship coming from China, it's been on a boat for the last month, we'll put that in, and then as soon as I can afford some NVMe SSDs, we'll put those in and we'll set them up in some sort of array to share them. But here you go. We've already got this some items relegated to this machine. I'm not going to go into too much detail. We'll save that for another video. But I do have one very important machine here, and that is my HAL 2024 machine. And I'll let you be the judge of what that machine is doing, just based on the hardware you can see in it. You can see we got a PCI device. It's funny, I didn't put any notes on that machine, but that's just the way that is. We got a server running Windows Server 2022. This is actually my web server, and we'll talk about that moving forward. I've got a Docker machine, Debian 12 running Docker and Portainer, and hosting some very interesting stuff on it. And that's part and parcel of what this server is all about. Now, just to elaborate on some of the things I'm going to be able to do with this server, and it's been a long time coming, and special thanks to Sakura for convincing me it was now the time to buy this unit and to make sure I had the right parts to build it with, because this machine is going to be a workhorse. It's going to be one of several workhorses that, while they're powerful, they're power efficient. So the Epyc doesn't really use all that much power. The main power user in those machines is going to be the video cards. So, but even at idle, they don't use a whole lot of power, but it all adds up. But, keep in mind with Proxmox, we can create and maintain multiple virtual machines on this server. I mean, the sky's the limit. Each VM can have its own operating system, applications, resources, and we can, makes it ideal for hosting different services and applications. We can use it to run multiple web servers, host development and lab environments, database servers, virtual desktop infrastructure. With the addition of the PCI expansion card, we'll be able to store a massive library of ebooks and documents, or a vast archive of logs and system data. I mean, just any number of things you can do it. And, not that I'm a end of the world kind of nut guy, but how about an off-grid survival server? I mean, we just had the internet go down. Well, part of the internet, everybody who was using that software on Windows went down the other day. So it's kind of nice, I have all this solar here, but I have nothing to play with if the grid goes down or the internet goes down. I wouldn't have access to information I normally would have at my fingertips. And I don't like that. So kind of think of this as also an off-grid survival server. And we're going to be delving deeper into that as time goes on with this server. We'll be building upon what we've learned on. I'm trying to learn all kinds of new stuff. I'm trying to learn Docker, Casa OS, the differences between it. I'm trying to run these programs, some of these open source programs on Windows versus Linux versus this versus that. Some other features. So this server is going to be very helpful for that. And then the best part of this server is built-in IPMI, so that I can do stuff remotely if I'm not able to get up and, well, frankly, walk to the rack to push a button. I can push it from here, from my desktop. IPMI gives me that ability. And also some other bells and whistles. I can remotely install software, all that kind of stuff. We've got support for multiple internet connections. I'll be probably adding a 10 gig NIC to this later. So overall, this server is going to provide us with powerful and flexible platform for hosting various services, applications, and resources. It's just going to make it, an essential tool for our needs. So there you go, kind of a brief look at the build and the configuration of the server. And keep in mind, just like any other device here at Unkyjoe's Playhouse, this server is a work in progress. It is currently up and running, as you saw, quite a few things. I depend on it quite regularly to run my AI for my large language model. I use Llama 3. getting ready to use Llama 3.1, the 7 billion parameter model. And I just keep that up and running during the day, and anytime I want to ask a question, I just go into my large language model. And I'm going to show you how I set that up under Windows. You can do it under Windows, you can do it under Windows Subsystem for Linux, you can do it under Linux, whatever your heart's desire. I just wanted to make sure, being a Windows guy, that I understood how to install it under Windows as well. And in the process, it's helped me learn more about Linux and about Docker and about how all these things tie together. So the barriers between Windows and Linux that were there when I was a youngling are no longer there. The two are so entrenched and tied together. There's everything you can do on Linux now you can pretty much do on Windows if you know what you're doing. But that's a story for another day. Right now, if you found this video entertaining and informative, please give us a thumbs up down below and leave your comments down in the comments section. Subscribe if you're not already a subscriber, and click that notification bell to be notified of new videos when they come out. Donate if you're so inclined. Your generous contributions help us keep this channel alive and new content so we can buy these servers like this and put them in our lab. So PayPal, Patreon, YouTube join function, or just become a YouTube premium member. We all get a little piece of that pie every month. So thanks again for coming in to see us, and don't forget, we'll see all of you on the other side.
I've been watching old Unkyjoe, from Texas heat to where the cacti grow, fixing server solar power in the land, hoping that his plans all stand, making life a touch more bright underneath those southern lights.